Hey viewers, Subhashni Manohar here. The subject is English literature for the class 9th. The topic is poem and the name of the poem is A Legend of the Northland written by Phoebe Cary. The poetess shown in this picture, she was Phoebe Cary. She was an American poetess and sister of Alice Cary. Alice Cary is also a poetess. The sisters co-published poems in 1849 and then each published their own volumes of books. After their death, joint anthologies of sisters, the unpublished poems were compiled and published. She was born on 4th September 1822 and died on 31st July 1871. She was an 18th century poetess. The notable works of the poetess were The Leak in the Time, The Lovers, Suppose, Jacob, Ballad of the Canal, etc. The introduction to the poem, A Legend of the Northlander. This poem is a story about a selfish and shallow minded woman. She is asked for alms by Saint Peter, who has become weak and tired because of fasting and traveling. But her greed forces her not to offer him anything, not even anything, to that saint who had become weak and tired. He said that she was too selfish to live as a human and she don't deserve to be in human form and have food, shelter and fire to keep her warm. So the saint punished her by changing her into a bird. That is, he changed her into a wooden pecker that would have built nest to live and bore hard, dry wood to get food. The first two stanzas were Away, away in the northland, where the hours of day are few, and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them though, where they harness the swiftness reindeer to the sledges when it snows, and the children look like bear's cubs in their funny, furry clothes. In the region around the North Pole, the duration of day is very less because its position is such like that. The sun's days reach for a very less time. When this area is experiencing night time, it was so long and long that they cannot sleep them through. The Northland region experiences very cold. At that time, it is a snowy area. The children in that area will look like young bear's cub because of their clothes, which is made of fur, and it looks funny as they wear it to escape from cold. The third, fourth stanza. They tell them a curious story. I don't believe this true, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. Once, when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below and walked about it, preaching just as he did, you know. Here, the word they refers to elder ones and them to the smaller children. The elders of Northland region tells a strange and fascinating story. The poet also says that she didn't believe that it's true, but if she tells the story to us, we can learn a lesson from that. The story is about Saint Peter. When Saint Peter used to live in the world and went around preaching religious lectures to the people, just like all saints do, an incident happened in his life which cannot be forgotten. The fifth, sixth stanza. He came to the door of a cottage in traveling round the earth, where a little woman was making cakes and baking them on the hearth, and being faint with fasting, for the day was almost done, he asked her from her store cakes to give him a single one. When Saint Peter was giving religious lectures and preaching them to the people and moving around the world, he reached a cottage one day, and there a small woman was baking cakes in a fireplace. He was very weak and felt faint as he was hungry. He hadn't eaten anything the entire day. He went to the woman who was baking cakes and asked for only one cake, a single cake out of many cakes she had baked. The seventh, eighth stanza. So she made a very little cake, but as it baking lay, she looked at it, and though it seemed too large to give away, therefore she needed another, and still a smaller one. But it looked, when she turned it over, as large as the first had done. The woman was selfish. Not selfish. She is very selfish. She did not give cake from her store. Instead, she started making a very small cake for Saint Peter. She did not share her things. When she put the cake for baking, she worked at the cake and think that it is too big to be given for someone. Then the woman started making another small cake. After baking that cake too, she turned it over and looked at it for time. It was as large as the first cake, so she thought that She doesn't have heart to give that cake to. Again, she was not ready to share the smaller one and also the larger one too. She was not ready to share. She was very selfish. And the ninth, tenth stanza. Then she took a tiny scrap of dough and rolled it flat and baked it thin as a wafer, but she couldn't part with that. For she said, my cakes that seem too small when I eat of them myself and yet too large to give away, so she put them on the shelf. For the third time, she took a tiny amount of dough and rolled it flat. Then she baked it and rolled it into a thin wafer. She was so greedy that she wasn't ready to share the wafer too. The woman said that when she looks at the cake to eat for herself, it was looking too small, and when she was looking at it to share it with someone, it was looking very large. So she puts the wafer too on the shelf and said she can't share anything. She don't have anything. So the 11th, 12th stanza. The good Saint Peter grew angry, for he was hungry and faint, and surely such a woman was enough to provoke such a saint. And he said, you're far too selfish to dwell in a human form, to have both food and shelter, and fire to keep you warm. In this stanza, the poet says that the good Saint Peter became angry. He grew angry by the behavior and acts of that woman. He was very hungry and was feeling weak and faint. The selfish woman was not ready to give even a small piece of cake. This behavior of that greedy woman angered the saint. The saint cursed the woman for being very selfish. He said that she did not deserve to be in human form and to live as a human being in this world. God had given her food, shelter, and everything and fire to keep her warm, but she did not want to share them with anyone. This is not the good behavior, and this behavior made the saint very angry. 13th, 14th stanza. Now you shall build as the birds do, and shall get your scanty food by boring and boring and boring all day in the hard dry wood. Then up she went through chimney, never speaking a word, and out the top flew a wooden pecker, for she was changed to a bird. Saint Peter cursed the woman to become a bird, as she did not deserve to be in human form. She shall become a bird, just live like a bird. It built houses by boring into woods and collect very little food by working hard entire day. She became a bird. As soon as Saint Peter cursed the poet, she didn't get a chance to speak for herself. His curse transformed her into a bird. She flew up through chimney in the form of wooden pecker. 15th and 16th stanza. And she had a scarlet cap on her head, and that was left the same, but all the rest of her clothes were burnt black as a funnel in the flames. And every country schoolboy has seen her in the wood, where she lives in the trees till this very day, boring and boring for food. When the woman turned into a bird, at that time she was wearing a red-colored cap on her head. This cap was there on bird's head also. The remaining were burned and turned to black like a charcoal. People who lives in countryside, even small children who goes to school by that way, seen this kind of bird in woods. Then the poet say that she states that they're all day. She states that the bird lives there all day and keeps boring and digging the wood for food with her beak. The message of the poem. This poem conveys the message that as a human being, we should have positive qualities like affection, love, fellow being, sympathy, generosity, and a sense of sharing. The poet also brings forth the idea that people with negative inhuman values like selfishness, greed, cruelty, and grudge are ultimately punished. They cannot be left. Thank you.